It has been months since I came up with a pretty robust theory of who killed Jonbenet and how everything went down. This case has been unsolved for decades, and I think that's why we're finding our place in the chaos of like insane theories, desperate for answers. Because as these cases are unsolved, we get farther and farther away from the simplest answer. And I think, the simplest answer. Um, in regards to this video, this is solely my speculation, my um, thoughts. This is all allegedly. So I think that for all of the reasons that everyone kind of takes the Ramseys and says, this person couldn't have done it because of XYZ, and this person couldn't have done it because of XYZ, it's because the family's actions, the morning of this murder, were perfectly overlapping for all of this chaos. And part of that is their desire to protect each other. So we'll go through it real quick. The handwriting, 100% Patsy's. It was her notepad. It was her pens. 100% Patsy's. The way the small foreign faction introduces themselves is a way no foreign faction would ever introduce themselves. To insult themselves and call themselves small, and also to insinuate that they're so small, this is going to be really hard to find us. Mr. Ramsey, the formality of the introduction alone speaks to respect for Mr. Ramsey, right? The $118,000, which was Ramsey's Christmas bonus, suggests that the small foreign faction has some level of intimate knowledge that they actually probably shouldn't, of inner workings of a business. But realistically, it was only put in there to display intimate knowledge of Ramsey's pay. I mean, this guy had two private jets. He was worth a lot more than $118,000, and you'd have to be an idiot to think that his daughter's dollar value is right there at $118K. We respect your business. Now, subconsciously, what this says is the person writing it out doesn't really want anyone taking too close a look at the financial inner workings of Ramsey's business, because I guarantee there's some white collar crime or something crooked in the taxes, especially way back then. I mean, tax fraud was rampant, and it was everywhere, and money was being funneled all kinds of places with very little accountability. Excuse me. The SBTC signature, that could be Southern Baptist of Texas Convention or Saved by the Cross. Either way, it's got some religious connotations, and I really think that that's trying to speak to, like, this could be religious extremists, possibly. I don't know. Bags, the étagère. So this was, I think as she was writing this, she was like, oh my God, no one would write étagère, but it sounded really foreign, so it goes back to the small foreign faction. So she left it in strategically, because after she wrote it, she was like, wait, no, that works. That lines up. Delivery versus pickup of your daughter, right? So I believe something like your daughter will be delivered to you was crossed out, and instead you were giving, the kidnappers were giving instruction of where to pick up Jonbenet. And I think the reasoning for this correction, and it speaks to the writer's mind that they needed to correct this, is subconsciously they wanted to demonstrate to police that they needed to take the search outside of the home as quickly as possible to find this pickup location that this child was being held at and was either going to be beheaded or freed. The entire fat cat, like, you're not the only fat cat around here, John. That is actually, speaking highly of John. It doesn't sound like it is, but it totally is speaking highly of John Ramsey. Now, when we're talking about these injuries that John suffered, so this again is where everyone's like, oh, it couldn't have been this person because XYZ, this person, blah, 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 blah. They overlap perfectly. So, and I actually believe that this all took place shortly after the Christmas party, right? And they spent the evening trying to stage everything and figure everything out. Um, the type of injury that Jean Benet had, the amount of blood that would come to that blunt force trauma would be horrific to find, right? And the little brother made the initial blow. The mother noticed the state of her child, probably gurgling, probably making all kinds of very concerning noises. And yeah, the autopsy results showed that that blunt force trauma would have led to Jean-Benet's death. Now, the entire family is up and there's chaos in the household at this point. And I think it was Patsy, but either way, this point is not important to the end state, who ordered John Ramsey to finish her off. Like, she's suffering, she's dying. Like, this is really bad. Put her out of her misery, John. And he did it. He had the intimate knowledge of the garrote, and how to fashion one and the knots and everything. So, no, one member of the Ramsey household could have performed all acts. You've got to disperse responsibility here in the most logical way possible. Now, I believe Burke repeated his father and what his father told him, which is what's done is done, to an investigator who was interviewing him. That's why that sounded really odd out of a child's. Also, the father, like, and the mother, cognitive dissonance. They had to get away from this really uncomfortable memory of what happened that night by putting the intruder in their minds outside of that household, putting the culprit outside of that household, and solely doubling down in protecting their living child. Also, the ability, like, how wonderful would it be if John Ramsey could somehow just pin this on somebody? Like, that would free up all the rumor mill. That would relieve so much stress from his family. So he's more than happy to invest as much money as it takes to finding someone who just fits the bill for this. It's very rewarding end state for all of this. All of the tension, all of the stress for the last decades is gone if they can just find someone who fits the mold for this. I believe that during the autopsy, I think that there were signs of sexual trauma. And I think actually mild sexual trauma. Who's capable in that household of mild sexual trauma? Burke. I allege, that Burke was molesting his little sister, and also abusing her to some degree, with or without his parents finding out. Also, a child who performs this act, their ability to lie and not slip up means they are culpable in it. Like, a child will double down all day, every day, no matter how much evidence. So he's doing that. The parents are lying too, and they haven't fucked up either because they have a stake in the game, so they can lie their whole damn lives. Everyone had a responsibility in this crime, and that's why everyone's covering for themselves and kind of each other. But if you were solely covering for someone else, like any member of that family solely was covering for one other member, then over time someone would slip up and really mess up. We're not talking to you right now as heard on the 911 call after Patsy thought she hung up. Everyone thinks this is them being mean or being aggressive to Burke after he did what he did. No, That's not it. That is a father saying, right now, we're not talking to you. Your mother has to complete this act, and then we'll continue to reassure you that everything's going to be okay. They deliberately, from the jump, contaminated that crime scene as much as possible to disrupt and contaminate all forensic evidence. He immediately grabbed that child. Um, oh, deliberate, quickly grabbing the child, ripping the Band-Aid off. Before grabbing Jonbenet or being told by the police to search the house top to bottom instead of bottom to top, which is what Ramsey did, he wanted to rip the Band-Aid off. He was missing for 90 minutes before this happened. You know what he was doing in those 90 minutes? Getting really uncomfortable, getting really panicked, and that the cops were not leaving the house. That's why this was said to be a kidnapping. So the cops would leave the damn house. And they were not leaving. And he was making peace with the idea that they weren't leaving and the game plan had to change. Now, had the cops actually left, they would have really fucked up by removing the body from the home and getting caught. That would have got him caught, but cops never left the house. So what seemed like the right thing for the cops to be doing, they still fucked that up by staying present and not giving them a chance to move the body. I found her in the pitch black, cellar in the basement. How'd you know you found her? She was under a sheet, which again speaks to regret and sadness and grief and not wanting to see your dead child. The narrative of sleeping on the 911 call, that is planted pretty heavily. We were sleeping. No, you weren't, Patsy. You were up all night. You woke up in the same clothing. Same clothes from last night. The pineapple in her system. She took some of Burke's pineapple. It was his favorite or whatever. She took some of his pineapple and he hit her, just like he did a couple months prior with a golf club. And I believe he was successful. They've done some tests and stuff with children trying to accomplish this as well. But you know what the children aren't? Pissed the fuck off, right? There's a level of anger there that is not in these testings, but also still within the testings, I still think a couple of the kids were able to do it, but I'm not certain. So let me know if I'm wrong. After a trauma like this, it would be, most parents would try to achieve normalcy for their child, as much as possible. But knowing what Burke knew and knowing what they knew and all the family stuff, they chose to isolate instead and double down on that isolation. Burke grew up to be a very awkward, in my opinion, grown person who still to this day is very isolated. He's not under the coverage of his parents all the time, but he knows it's for the best to stay isolated. That's really all I have of the intersecting points where and what roles all these parents had and what role they have to this day. I know Patsy's passed, but I think she gave the command to John, that it was heartless to leave this child dying. And she was dying. She was going to die. So good call there, Patsy, I guess. But this was a very shitty thing that happened. And as time goes on, the theories just get wilder and wilder because that's naturally what happens. But I just wanted to simplify this because the simplest answer is in there. It's in the stack of pieces that I provided, and they fit together perfectly. There was no intruder. John had broken that window sometime prior. That window was just broken. And if they're going to break a window or break into your house, just use the front door because by then the front door is open. It's absurd. Everything about this case is so absurd. Where everyone's taken it. It's just ridiculous. And a lot of weirdos came out of the woodwork, like the weird Santa guy, the Smetophile, all these weird, creepy dudes. But guess what? That's the really scary, shitty society we live in. And it's natural when you take a microscope that you find all of this shady shit. So no massive cover up. I think John's elite status within the city did help him a little bit, but realistically, I think everyone knows what happened. So, yeah, everyone who's a cop. So, bye. This is like my first video really on here, but I am so desperate to get this information out of here because, as I believe it, I think everyone is zeroing in on one piece and saying that can't fit under this narrative that one person in that household did the act to completion. That's not what happened, and that doesn't align with how well they got away with it. Because that could only happen if they all knew and all had a role to play and a sin to pretend or keep secret. So that's all I got. There's plenty more I could find. If there's anything I haven't addressed, I'm more than willing to address it. The DNA and the fucking underwear, no. I believe that's residual from a factory. If anyone disagrees with me, like, please. And I will probably destroy your argument, but okay, bye.